Hi guys, Rose here. This is going to be the post Let's Play discussion that I used to do for the path, and I figured it'd be a good idea to kind of do some sort of debriefing on the cat lady because I didn't really get a chance to really take in everything at the end of at the very end of the game. Kind of wanted to like sit on everything that I had that had happened and kind of take it in before having a discussion about it. So I never know how to start these things. Okay, so a couple things that I wanted to talk about was so basically, if I had to summarize this game, if I had to summarize it, I would say it's about this woman's struggle with, gosh, I don't know how to word it, like a traumatic event in her life that she needed to come to grips with, but she wasn't admitting to herself. Okay, something I want to talk about is the parasites. So at the very, very beginning, when we meet the Queen of Maggots, who ends up being, by the way, this don't watch this. Don't listen to this discussion if you haven't seen or played the entire game because it's just entirely spoilers. So the Queen of Maggots, who turns out to be Susan's what is it? Susan's bitterness, I believe, or something like that, tells her that she needs to kill these parasites and everything. So I forget how many parasites there was meant to be, but we she told us be careful. The parasites are just horrible, horrible people, and you need to get rid of them because they're parasites on the world and they're going to try to get close to you. They're going to try to get you to open up to them, and they're gonna try to be your friend and everything. So, but however, I only found that one single parasite was like that, and that was the first one, the doctor, the psychiatrist. So I kind of would have liked a little bit more mystery, I guess, as to who the parasites were, because the first time I was a bit I was a bit suspicious of the doctor, but every other parasite from then on, the two cannibals, the man with the hammer and the flowers, and then Eye of Adam, they were all pretty straightforward when you met them, when you first see them. There's no doubt that they're the parasites because you're put in a situation where they're trying to kill you. Um, so I didn't really see how there was. I thought it would be a little bit difficult. I thought it would be a little bit of a mind game with having the player trying to figure out who was a parasite and who was an actual friend. I think they probably did that with they did that with Liz, and they did that with Mitzi. So I think probably that maybe the Queen of Parasites saying that the parasites are, or the Queen of Maggots saying that the parasites are going to be somebody who gets close to you, more than anything, is to make you suspicious of people who are actually your friends that turn out to just not, like nobody that's a really good friend to you turns out to be a parasite. So I kind of would have liked a little bit more mystery, maybe a little bit more of a, trying to figure out who's a parasite and who you can trust and who you can't. Another thing that I want to talk about is the candles that we blew out. I would have to go back and recheck this to make sure this is all factual, but I don't believe that every single time that we died as Susan, we had to blow out a candle. I'm pretty sure it wasn't like that. I mean, several times when we died, we had to blow out a candle, which ended up giving us a short little cutscene of somebody dying, which kind of makes you believe that Susan's immortality has a price, and that price is being paid by other people. But I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit suspicious or wary, if you want to say, about saying that Susan's lives were taken from other people, because some of those deaths, mainly the old person who died of old age, that you saw when you blew out a candle, that's not taking a life. That was something that happened naturally. So it's kind of like that life was already spent. Uh, if that makes any sense. So probably would have made more sense to me if every time, if that were the case, if Susan's immortality was being paid for by other people's lives, it would make more sense to me if the deaths of those people that we saw, the cutscenes, were all by accident, violent death, sudden death, like heart attack, something, some acute medical problem or some acute trauma. That would probably have made more sense because it's as if Susan is taking their life, to replenish hers. But it kind of didn't really seem that way, especially I kind of want to note the suicide, the very first one, the hanging, the man who hung himself, because that seemed to be something that he was going to do anyways. It's not like because Susan died and she blew out the candle, all of a sudden he decided that he was going to hang himself. That doesn't make sense, you know? So I think that there's definitely a connection between Susan Susan's immortality, blowing out the candles, and the deaths of those anonymous people that we saw. But I really don't want to say that Susan took their lives, that they died because she blew out their candle. I don't want to say that because that just doesn't seem right. I know that it seems like I'm starting with a lot of criticism, but it's not really intentional. I mean, I'm just kind of like thinking about the game as a whole and just what the thoughts that come to me post game are. So, I guess one other thing that I guess I was hoping for, or I thought might have been improved, was that at the very end, the video that I named the choice, which I was vague about because you don't know which choice I was talking about. You didn't know if I was talking about the choice to give Mitzi the gas mask or the choice whether to blow out a candle or not. So, which choice was it that I was talking about, huh? Because not a lot of you, a few of you actually commented saying that handing Mitzi the gas mask really wasn't a choice because Susan was immortal. It just made sense. It made sense. You knew that Susan was gonna wake up again. So what really did she have to lose? On the other hand, if you want to go back to the idea of blowing out the candles, maybe you would be thinking, well, if Susan dies, she's going to have to blow out a candle, which will kill somebody, right? If you want to take that stance on the candles. So if Susan dies, she's going to have to blow out a candle and some unknown person is going to die. So I guess essentially you might be thinking that the decision is, am I going to let Mitzi die or am I going to let some random stranger die? And that's kind of, I mean, it sounds like an easy choice, but when you really stop and think about it, it's kind of a moral dilemma. What's the difference? Why should a stranger that you'd never met die? Why is there a difference between their life and the life of somebody really close to you and a friend? Objectively, because I know there's emotions involved. Of course, it's not. I mean, humans are emotional creatures, so of course, to the person, it's going to be different. Of course, are you going to save your husband, your mother, your child, or somebody else's husband, mother, or child? You know, and that may be an easy emotional question to answer, but is it right? You know? So, I was kind of hoping. Anyways, back to the whole decision of whether who gets the gas mask. Maybe it would have been a little bit more of a climax if it would have been a little bit more climactic if for some reason the player believed that Susan would die for real. I don't know how you might want to set that up story wise, but maybe if you really believed that Susan would have died for real that time. Now, do you want to still give Mitzi the mask knowing that she's going to die in 6 months anyway? Or let Susan live who has a long life ahead of her? And by the way, who has just now regained her will to live. That is a dilemma, right? That would have been a lot. more difficult of a decision, um, and it would have been a lot more tense. That would have been really something that you need to stop and think about. But for me, honestly, it was an easy question with Susan being immortal. Um, Again, I know it does seem like I'm doing mostly criticism, but to be fair, I spent the entire Let's Play just praising the hell out of that game, and it does deserve it, but this is kind of me reflecting back on things. Um, 'Cause I've already expressed how amazing I think that everything is. So I'm going back looking at the big picture here. Another couple things I wanted to point out was that I thought the man with the hammer was very uh, spontaneous and it didn't really have much explanation. I would have said if Mitzi weren't there, like let's say if Mitzi had gone out or if Mitzi just hadn't rented the room yet or something, I would have said that that scenario happened in her head. And it would be, and that man would be her admirer from 8 years ago, 6 years ago, or however long ago. And that was her way of punishing herself and having him be the aggressor in it. I would have said that it was completely psychological and didn't ever actually happen. Or if it did, it was kind of like a supernatural thing that happened. But um, because he had the flowers, and I believe he shows up right after you find out about that. But because Mitzi was involved, um, the only way that you can justify that is to say that Mitzi wasn't real, and Mitzi was also a figment of her imagination or a psychological entity. Because if we're going to take that scene with the man with the hammer and the hanging and the bathtub and all that, if we're going to take that as that's what happened, it happened in real life, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's spontaneous. He has the flowers, so you think that it might be her admirer from those years ago. But why? Why would he show up then? And why would he be trying to kill her? And why would he have acted the way that he acted? Setting Susan free, acting all weird and wanting her to play the piano when uh he I don't believe that he knew that Susan played the piano or he never actually came to her flat obviously when she was married and when she had her kid. So what I'm wondering is it's just thin. Okay, so what is his motivation? If it actually happened, what was his motivation to show up just then at Susan's apartment when all this was going on? Um, and do that to Mitzi, try to kill Mitzi, and all that. So I think I need to sit on it a little bit longer and think, well, okay, if Mitzi isn't real, how does that affect everything else in the game? How does that affect everything else? Because it might be plausible. It might be plausible. Um, and that's just one person's interpretation. It may not even be the one that the developer intended necessarily, but it's just a possibility. It's a possibility. And then I think one of the last things I want to bring up is, oh goodness, I forget his name. Joe? Is it Joe and his wife? Joe and Ivy? Lily? I I don't know. But the the experience that we had with the woman with the mirrors and then the husband, that was kind of out there and you don't know if that happened or not. I'm going for it didn't happen. Just because I like things when they have depth to it, when they have depth rather than nope, that actually happened. It was just weird as hell. Don't know why it happened, but it did and it was freaky. But I thought it was a great scene. It may have been a little bit out of place story wise, or at least underexplained story wise, but it was an amazing scene that scared the living fucking shit out of me that I screamed so loud and so high pitched that my microphone didn't record it. I I screamed my head off, and it was probably one of the most terrifying scenes in the game. So, and I'm glad. I really liked that little puzzle that it had with the hands and the left and right. So that was pretty dang cool. But I still feel like I'm failing to understand its significance in the grand scheme of the game. What did they represent? Why were they there? What was their story even? I guess he killed her. And he was acting very schizophrenic, but then once we entered what I called his mind, um, he was acting quite sane and quite pleasant, really. He was acting quite pleasant. So that was very strange. And then at the very, very, very end, I believe we see him again, and his wife's corpse, this hugely morbidly obese, um, very disturbingly restrained corpse. So, I'm gonna have to try, and when I replay it, and I'm going to replay it, and I might record sections that I do differently or things that happen differently. If you guys are interested in that kind of thing, let me know below, because I will be playing this again on my own time. I'm gonna make some different decisions. If you'd like me to cue you in on the effects of those different decisions, then I could consider doing that. But when I go back and replay, I'm going to have to try to fit them in specifically somewhere. Yeah. Um, One thing that I mentioned during the Let's Play, I'm going to wrap things up really quick. I know this has gone on too long. But one thing that I really, really liked is we saw a definite progression, a definite character development in Susan, who starts off the game saying to the world, "Thanks for nothing." She's swallowed a load of pills and she feels ready. She feels calm. She's telling she's telling the Queen of Maggots, "Do what you want," or rather, "Fine, I'll do what you want." She's given up on life. She's given up on herself. She's given up on the chance of ever being happy again, and she just lets herself be brutalized with those images when the Queen of Maggots is trying to make her suffer by showing her these disturbing images. And then we get to this kick-ass Susan who's determined and fiery. She's fierce. She's not a middle-aged woman to fuck with, you know? She's got an attitude on her, and she's got this determination and ferocity that we did not even have a glimpse of at the very beginning of the game, and I thought that was awesome. So it was great to see that, and at the end of the game, you see how strong she has become despite all the shit that she went through, which was ridiculous and unfair. And I wouldn't have blamed that poor woman if she hadn't continued on. I wouldn't have blamed her. Holy shit, that's so much strength of character right there. And then in the end, she was able to not only um, find reasons for herself to go on, but losing her best friend who basically brought her there and still continuing on after that. So that was really awesome. Oh, one last thing. I promise this is the last thing. The scenes of her standing on the bridge, those were very weird and out of place. I think I never really connected them to anything else. I think that they were rather random, to be honest. Okay, guys, this has gone on way too long. Possibly break this into 2 videos. If you have anything to say on this game, any comments, if you agree with me, disagree with me, write it down below. I would love to hear it, love to listen to it, and I will see you guys in the next game.